Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press and media, Congressman Steve King.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here today to stand up and speak for our angel families, for those that we have lost and those that we so sadly lament their loss. And for me, this goes back a ways. I would say I was a ranking member of the Immigration Subcommittee here in Congress as far back as a dozen years ago. And even back then, that was when Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker, and we couldn't hold a hearing, an official one, so we held faux hearings. And I brought some of the angel parents in to testify then before the faux hearings that we had. And we did that for the purposes of press. We did that to send the message out to America. And it hit home for me. It hit home for me quite a few years ago when a friend of one of my employees was killed by an illegal alien out in Colorado, and I was friends of his parents. And I remember the tragedy, the way that crushed their family and crushed their lives, and how they tried to make sense out of that, how an illegal alien that never should have been setting foot in the first place on U.S. soil was left to roam freely, to work wherever he chose to do whatever he chose to do, to kill their firstborn and only son. And that brought it home for me. I also grew up in a law enforcement family, and my father drilled it into me. The rule of law is the rule of law, and you shall abide by the law. And if you don't like the law, you have two choices. You can lobby the legislature to change it, or you can run for office and do it yourself. Well, I took his advice in both cases, and I ran for office in the end, and we're still trying to fix these laws. But we're also trying to get the rule of law, the respect for it, restored in this country. The disrespect is why we have these tragedies here with these angel families. The disrespect for the law, the collaboration of local governments in particular, and not just turning a blind eye, but now moving legislation to declare. First we heard about sanctuary cities. When they first came out, they were an anomaly. And then they became replete across the countryside, and a number of them in my home state of Iowa. Then we heard about sanctuary counties, those jurisdictions that said, not only are we not going to assist in working to enforce immigration law, but we're going to defy the federal government's duty and obligation and defy the federal laws themselves. And so we had sanctuary cities, sanctuary counties, and now we have a sanctuary state, California, a defiance of the sovereignty of the United States of America and a defiance of the Constitution of the United States. And when a detainer goes out, when ICE wants to put a hold on someone who's been picked up by local law enforcement, and they say, we're not going to honor that detainer, even though it is law. This Congress granted the authority to the Department of Homeland Security to write the rules on how they might establish the detainer. We granted that authority to DHS, and they defy it anyway. And so the system of when people are picked up in the streets that are unlawfully here, every time they need to be handed over to ICE. And all local law enforcement needs to cooperate at every possible level. And it's always been that way. I grew up in a law enforcement family, as I said. I can't imagine city police not cooperating with county sheriffs, not cooperating with our highway patrol, not cooperating with our Department of Criminal Investigation, not cooperating with the FBI or DHS ICE. That chain of cooperation has been why we've had respect for the rule of law in America. We expect the law is going to be enforced. We expect all of these brave men and women that put on a uniform every day, risk their lives for us, to work and cooperate with each other without interference from some elected mayor or board of supervisors or governor and legislature that are undermining this rule of law. And the children that are of the angel parents that are here have been sacrificed on the altar of political correctness, cheap votes, and cheap labor. That's the price. And it's personal. I started out by telling you how it began to be personal for me. It's personal for me with a number of you here that I've gotten to know. And I know that Michelle knows, and I know that Marianne knows, that I have a pretty good collection, and it's a sad thing to have a collection of the bracelets for their children that have been sacrificed, as I said. And they hang on the antlers in my man cave. When I go down there in the morning for my time of meditation, I pray for you families. I pray for the souls of your children. And when I looked at the list of a number of these children that we are that we are talking about here today, and it's scrolled, their faces scrolled in front of me on a Twitter account, and it started out like this: Molly Tibbetts, Kate Steinle, Tessa Trenchett, Dominic Durden. When I saw just the first four names, I know the faces of their parents. This is personal. My jackets have been soaked with the tears of their parents, and I've shed tears for their parents. As I got down through that list, I realized I knew half of the parents on this list that was out. And that includes the parents of Sarah Root, who came to testify as well. And I'm going to talk about Scott, Sarah's father, who gave, I think, the most powerful testimony I've heard when he said, under testimony before the House Judiciary Committee, he said, an illegal alien killed our daughter. And he was bailed out of jail for less money than it took to bury her before we could have the funeral. And he left the country. He was out of the country before they could have the funeral. That's how bad this is. And so we have a whole series of things we need to do. Yes, build the wall. I've been for this wall for a long time. Last summer, we brought some immigration legislation to the floor of the House. These were all pieces of legislation that I authored. Kate's Law, we passed that in late June of last year. Sarah's Law, we passed that in late June of last year. We have the sanctuary city legislation that gives you standing to sue local government if they turn illegal alien criminals out on the street rather than turning them over to an ICE detainer. We passed that last summer too. All three of those bills passed the same day, and all of them are sitting on Mitch McConnell's desk right now waiting for action. We need to fund the wall. We need to pass this legislation. We need to get either mandatory E-Verify in place or the New IDEA Act, which brings the IRS in to enforce as well. And that's even better than New IDEA. But mostly we need these members of Congress to understand this is personal, it is human, it is tragic, it is foolish for a nation that should be planning its future and planning to have the very best combination of respect for the rule of law, a healthy economy, people that are safe in the streets, safe at school, comfortable in their homes, walking anywhere in America any time of the day or night, knowing that these gentlemen here and the folks that are with them are protecting us, and the people who look at them when they go down the street respect them and respect the rule of law. That's where America needs to go and where America needs to get. And we have to keep this message up. When you're here, every time you speak up, you make a difference. Your voice matters every time. Every prayer, every voice, every conversation. Not just in front of the television cameras, not just in a radio interview, but those matter more. But even across the coffee table or across the backyard fence, at work, at play, at church, wherever you are, don't let them up for air. Let them know this is personal, it matters, and each of these children here that we lament and pray for, there are hundreds and hundreds of them that we don't recognize. The graveyards across America are dotted with the deaths of thousands who have been killed at the hands of illegal aliens in America. Thousands. And that's a terrible loss. And so I ask you all to speak up to our members of Congress, speak up again and give our president support that he deserves. Speak up here today, and I'm going to keep my voice up in front, and you know that. And I'm going to keep my prayers up for all of you. And I have the opportunity now to introduce Michelle Root, who is the mother of Sarah Root. And Michelle is the mother of the most beautiful and intelligent, lovable young lady that any mother could ask for, a perfect 4.0 student at Bellevue University, just graduated the day before she was killed. And it breaks my heart to know this. When I saw that story, it crushed me just to see the story. Now you're going to hear from one of the most loving mothers there could possibly be, Michelle Root.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Michelle Root, and as my great Congressman Steve King stated, my daughter Sarah Root was killed less than 24 hours after graduating from Bellevue University with a 4.0 in criminal investigations. She was on her way home after celebrating with friends, stopped at a stoplight on 33rd and L in Omaha, Nebraska, where she was rear-ended by Edwin Mejia, a 19-year-old illegal alien who came over at age 16 unaccompanied. His blood alcohol was .241. According to the black box in his truck, he was going 70 plus miles an hour in a 35 mile an hour zone when he rear-ended my daughter and killed her. She was considered brain dead. However, Sarah was an organ donor, so we had the opportunity to have her on life support for 4 additional days while we were waiting for the recipients of her organs to be in place. Edwin Mejia bonded out, like Congressman King said, on Friday, February 5th, the day before we had my daughter's funeral. The judge, Jeffrey Marcuso from Omaha, Nebraska, set a bond of $50,000. He somehow paid $5,000 and fled. Now, he had warrants out for his arrest for failure to appear. However, those weren't taken into consideration when his bond was set. And in Nebraska, you do not have to secure the other $45,000. So all that was paid was $5,000. Sarah's life is worth much, much more than $5,000. So now he is still on the loose. We are still trying to find him to get justice for our daughter and to hope to prevent him from killing somebody else's family. Sarah's life mattered. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.